So I want to do an update and just kind of like do a startup confessional for the month of April 2012. You know, last December when I thought up the soft proto, I figured, wow, I could like code, at least not code, but show a lot of this platform and be able to raise the funding for it. And it hasn't happened. And I gave myself till February to do it. We raised an additional maybe $1,500, right? And it just wasn't enough to pay for coding or anything else. So what I decided, and other things happened in March too that really made me do certain things, was the end of growth talk and the realization that we are in the end of growth now. When we look back in history, we are in it now, right? It probably did start around, I would say it started with the market crash of 2007. The end of growth, that was the start of the end of growth, was, you know, when the market crashed. And I think history is going to you know, show that as the starting period. So I was thinking to myself, what do? Do I keep chasing, you know, begging people, investors, to invest in this dream of mine, right? And I've already spent 2 years trying to get funding, and I haven't been able to. All right, do I want to waste another year or get back to my life? I mean, when I came to Japan, I had nothing. Since I started on working on found ups in the open startup, basically I've thrown away all my savings, I've thrown away everything trying to get the startup going, which is common, right? And then I discovered that this massive Godzilla is actually real and it's coming, and my gut intuition was right. And not only that, it's already here. And I was thinking it was coming 10 years from now. So, you know, I have 2 kids, I have a family, what do? Well, I just decided, you know what, I've been talking about open sourcing this for over a year. Let's just open source it. Let's put up there, let's put what I have on the web, and let's see if, you know, coders will come to me and say, listen, I want to code this, because the coders I have, with all due respect, I mean, they're interested in, you know, they're top level coders, and they want to get paid for their coding. So, you know, so our opportunity is, if we can get some coders, start putting up, we'll put the code up, but we have, I've been in a rush to do it, but we will put it on GitHub, and ultimately put kind of the basic framework, and seeing if coders will start jumping on. So that was one thing. So the other thing is, it's springtime, and I started this initiative last year called Beekeeping Japan, and I'm serious about it. So this is beekeeping time, and I've been spending all my time throwing myself into beekeeping. And what's developed out of it is something called Save Our Bees. And in my research of the whole problem of the canary bird bee, canaries, you know the canary bird story, right? They're an alert system in you know, in not caves, but in mines, right? You carry a canary. Well, the bee is our canary. And not only that, I believe, and it's funny that the collapse of bees happened the same time when our financial markets collapse. Come on, guys, there's a little coincidence there. So the bees are dying at an exponential function, okay? An exponential function means that the bees mathematically are going to go pretty much extinct if we do not stop it, all right? The exponential function, and I strongly recommend you watch the playlist I have called The End of Growth, the science behind it talks. and understand the exponential function, because 99% of the population of the people do not understand. It's probably the most important mathematical concept for you to grasp, and there's 8 talks for you to watch and understand. And I guarantee, if you will take the time and watch those 8 talks, and then go back and watch the talks by Dennis and Richard on the end of growth and the limits to growth, you're going to see the world as I do. You're going to see your paradigm is going to shape, it's going to change. So I decided this April that I would focus on a startup here, and on a startup that I can manage, I can do without the need of any investors, that I could grow for my family with my 2 boys, and that is Beekeeping Japan, right? I don't need any investments for it. I've started, I've got the bees, I've got to learn, I'm building, my strategy. I've kind of laid out my strategy. Bees and flower shops. I'm going to be selling. My goal is to harness what's known as solitary bees, and I'm going to put them into flower shops. All these gardens don't have bees. They don't have bees. I've been looking. So I think people will buy their seed for their garden and pick up some bees every spring and then put them out. I'll create a little stand. I can build it all myself, really simple. Hammer it in, slide in your bees for that year, right? And sell the trade for like, I don't know yet. And bees aren't going to cost me anything to make, except for the time to make the habitats. So, whatever I sell them for, 100 yen, I'm thinking 100 yen strip, right? So each hotel is worth probably about, $10, $20, right? Per love, I'm calling the solitary bee love motels. So that's my business plan. And I don't need investments. I know I can grow it, and I'm not going to look for any investments for it because I don't need it. All right, I can do it here locally with what I have at very little cost. But I do want to teach other people to be able to do it too. So I'm pioneering this whole new system. So the other thing that I'm tested is this, what I call that I put in the Creative Commons, is a new way to what I call the going Coney 2012. For it framework, right? Going Coney 2012. Coney 2012 proved that in a very short time we can leverage social media and the people to bring about significant change. Debatable whether this change was positive or negative. I mean, I don't think going on witch hunts, I don't care how evil the person is necessarily the right thing to do. It's a shame that we have to do it and we have to promote our government to do it. But ultimately, anytime you go on a witch hunt, you're going to basically bring out ulterior motives, and you're going to be used. And I think that ultimately there's oil in Africa, there's resources in Africa, and this could become a reason for people without, as a motive for them to come in there and take advantage of the situation. Just as we did with Iraq, just as we did with Afghanistan, just as we've done in every single war in the history of humanity, okay? In the 10,000 years that, since civilization started, we have been basically waging war to take and exploit other people. And unfortunately, even though I think there was good intentions behind this, that is what's happened. So, and Beekeeping Japan is part of FoundUp. So ultimately, whether we launch, everything I do is part of FoundUps. Everything I do is, all the the investments, the stakes that folks have doesn't change anything, right? Because ultimately, if it does take off, I will launch Help Japan Co. as a subsidiary of FoundUps, and who knows? Instead of launching open startups, what we're launching is a whole bunch of bee initiatives all over Japan to help the bees, and then from there grow globally. But what's important to me right now, since I know the end of growth is here and it's happening, is for me to prepare for it, all right? Now. Not wait 5 years or 10 years, because it's going to get significantly worse. And it's and I want to, and just like in India, it's funny, the guys who go fishing in India illegally, they don't have fishing permits, or the guys that go into the forest and get eaten by the tigers, right? There's a whole section of India where people are, the tigers have more rights than the human beings because they're endangered, and I understand that. But ultimately, people are having to go at any extreme to survive. And if you don't have land, which I don't have in Japan, I better think up, a business that's going to allow me to generate the kind of income that I'll need in order to buy some land. So, and I can't put all my eggs in all one basket, right? Which I've been doing with the Open Startup. And really what I'm putting my eggs in is hope that some investor, whether in Japan or whatever, sees it. And at this stage, it doesn't matter to me anymore because, you know, if they don't see it, you know, they're screwed. And if they do see it, you know, I don't know if we have time. So I don't even know if my paradigm shift in how we do startups, my paradigm shift in education ultimately is going to help. Because, you know, look at us, look at the West. You know, we're highly educated, and yet we are just as destructive as, you know, as anyone in the world. So does education really work? I mean, I know what, you know, Dennis said that, you know, or even Mandela says that education is the most powerful weapon. Yeah, but only if your soul and heart is behind the cause, right? Behind the education. You can be highly educated, but then use the education to manipulate people. And unfortunately, we live in a society where, you know, where it is more advantageous for you to manipulate and take advantage of people than it is to do the right thing, unfortunately.